Hey class, it's Dr. Lambert. So welcome to week one of class, and today we're going to talk a little bit about chapter one. So let's just jump right into that information. Okay, so in chapter one, we are talking about just some of the basics of nutrition and what does nutrition mean and what does it look like in terms of kind of our everyday life. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the nutrition basics. So we'll look at why it's important to learn about food nutrition, some of the leading causes of death in the United States, what impacts your personal food choices, um, the sixth class of nutrients, and how to explain and determine whether a substance is a phytochemical or an essential nutrient. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. So, why should we learn about nutrition? And we do know that our eating habits impact our overall health. So, you can kind of think about it, we kind of get out what we put in. And so, if we're putting in good, healthy, nutritious foods, we're going to be living a healthier, more productive life. But it does help reduce our risk of heart disease, some types of cancers, type 2 diabetes. And then, if we add in exercise on top of that, that can really help reduce our risk of developing chronic diseases. And that's important because one, it can improve our quality of life, but two, it can also help reduce our healthcare costs. We'll live longer, feel better, and it can be beneficial as we get older. So the leading causes of death, you can see here, looking at the chart, that heart disease is a major cause of death in the U.S. And stroke. So those two together are almost 50% of our deaths, and we call those cardiovascular diseases because they have to do with the cardiovascular disease or the cardiovascular system. And so we do know that if we eat properly, we can help reduce the risk of those complications. So, when we're thinking about what causes a heart attack or what causes a stroke, that would be hypertension, having clogged arteries, that type of thing can lead to, or high cholesterol, that leads to those diseases. So, if we're eating healthy and exercising, that can help reduce those risks. And then you can see cancer is also another big factor. And we do know that there are some cancers that are impacted by dietary intake. Not all of them, but some, we do have some links there that show us that. All right, so what influences your eating habits? So we're going to do a little project called the Melting Pot, and then we'll talk a little bit about, like, you'll explore different regions of the world and what they eat. If you think about what impacts why you choose what you eat, it's probably a lot to do with where you grew up. So growing up here in Southeast Missouri, we tend to eat more Southern type of cooking. And so I can imagine most of you have had biscuits and gravy, catfish, fried, but you may not eat a lot of seafood. Now that's changed a little bit because the way that we get our food now and how it's shipped and produced, we have more variety than maybe we had in the past. But some of you may be impacted by your family's cultural background or ethnic background and what you choose to eat. So that we do have a lot of things that influence our eating habits, including the media and what we see and social media and online and even on TV. You know, we watch some of our favorite movies and there are products placed there intentionally, for McDonald's or even a Pepsi will be placed in a certain spot. And that is to kind of entice us to eat those things. And so there's a lot of things that can influence our eating habits. Even our friends and our peers can do that as well. And so it's not just one thing, it's a multitude of things that impact how we eat every day. So let's talk a little bit about the 6 classes of nutrients. So we have carbohydrates, lipids, which are your fats, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water. So carbs, lipids, and proteins, those are the 3 nutrients that are going to provide us with energy. Vitamins, minerals, and water, while they're essential and we need them in our body and we need them to function properly and to be healthy, they do not provide us any energy. Or think of it this way: carbs, lipids, and protein provide calories, and vitamins, mineral, and water do not. All right, we'll talk more about that as we go along too. And if we look at how our body is made up, we're made up of mostly water. And I know you guys have all heard the, like, if you don't drink water for 3 days, you'll die. But it is true because we're mostly made up of water, and water is an important part of temperature regulation. It helps with metabolic processes, helps keep our joints lubricated. It aids in digestion. So water is really important, and it does a lot of different things in the body. Most of us will see that fat is the next largest thing that our body's made up of. And women, we tend to carry more fat than men. And then protein, which would include like your muscles. So men tend to be a little more muscular than women. Unfortunately, that's just the stick where we've been, or the straw we've drawn on that, guys. But around 16% for men, 13% for women. Then you'll see minerals, which would include like calcium in your bones, that type of thing. We store very little carbohydrates in the body. And so some of you are like, what? I don't get that. We'll talk about that later on, but carbohydrates really are our preferred source of energy in the body. And so we don't store a lot of that, and it gets used really quickly. And if we have too much, it gets stored as fat. So we don't just keep a lot of carbohydrates stored around in the body. And then you'll notice that vitamins aren't even listed on there. We need them. They're essential. They provide a lot of functions for our body. They ensure that we stay healthy. They prevent deficiency diseases, but they're not included because they're very small. And those small amounts are not something that we could see. It's less than 1% of our body makeup. All right, so here's just our major functions of nutrients in the body. I've touched on them just for a second, so I'll just go back through them real quickly. Carbohydrates are for energy. Lipids, they provide us with energy, but they also have other jobs too. So they help with cell development, growth, regulation of body processes, like some hormones and things like that, absorption of certain vitamins. So we have fat-soluble vitamins where you have to have some fat available for them to be absorbed. Proteins, they help with structural components, cell membranes, cellular development and growth, regulation of certain body processes. They also provide a little bit of energy. Vitamins help with regulation of body processes, and then maintenance of proper immune function, tissues. They help protect against cellular damage. Minerals, again, regulation of body processes. They help with fluid balance and metabolism. Formation of certain chemical messengers, and they are necessary for physical growth, maintenance, and development. Water helps maintain our fluid balance and regulate our body temperature, and it also helps transport substances and participates in digestion and other body functions. So what is an essential nutrient? Essential nutrient must be supplied by food. So that means we have to eat it. Our body doesn't make it for us. And so you have to consume that in your diet. And so those essential nutrients like carbs, lipids, protein, your vitamins and minerals, you have to consume those. And so some keys to essential nutrients include, if you do not eat that, you could have a deficiency disease. So for example, you guys probably know that if you don't eat enough vitamin C, you end up with scurvy. If you don't eat enough niacin, you could develop pellagra. So we have to consume those nutrients to prevent those diseases. And if we add them back to our diet, then the signs and symptoms from that deficiency disease will disappear. And then another key component of essential nutrients is that we have an explanation for why Scientists can explain why the lack of a nutrient can cause abnormalities. So we have the science to back up to show that if these are the functions of these nutrients, and if we don't have them, this is what can happen. Okay. So, and then non-essential nutrients, just one little thing about that is that we don't have to consume them in our diet. Our body can make them. And we have a few vitamins that can be made by the body, but most of our vitamins and minerals we have to consume ourselves. So what are phytochemicals? These are substances found in plants, but they're not vitamins and they're not minerals, but we do know that they can be beneficial if we consume them. And so, for example, there are some that are related to improving heart health. So it is important that we get some of them into the diet, and most of the time we find them in plants, which your key there is phytochemicals, right? If we're thinking about, that would be plant chemicals if we're prefix and suffix words. All right, so what are some other factors that can influence our health, and why should we be worried about them? Let's talk just a few minutes about that. All right, so poor eating habits contribute to several leading causes of death, which we looked at that earlier, right? We know that stroke and heart attacks are the two leading causes of death in the US. And so if we have a diet high in fat and we're inactive, that increases our risk of becoming overweight or having excess body fat. And so because of that, we do know the science tells us that it puts us at higher risk for heart disease, certain cancers, type 2 diabetes, and hypertension. Now, our lifestyle choices aren't the only thing that put us at high risk for these chronic diseases. Unfortunately, genetics has a lot to do with that as well. And so if you have a family history of type 2 diabetes, or if heart disease runs in your family, hypertension, you're going to be at higher risk for those. I'll just give you an example. My husband, his family, they all have hypertension and they all have high cholesterol. And guess what? He has hypertension and high cholesterol. He eats pretty well. He doesn't eat perfect. He's not the perfect weight either, but he does eat, salads every day for lunch. He's eating yogurt and fruit for breakfast, but his cholesterol, the last time he went to get it checked, was still sky high, and his blood pressure is still high. So he's on blood pressure and cholesterol medication because even despite his best efforts in trying to live a healthy lifestyle, he still wasn't able to get those under control. And sometimes that just happens. Sometimes that's just part of it. Sometimes your genetics, you can't control that. But we do know that by exercising and eating healthy can help lower our risk. Sometimes just losing even like 10% body weight, heck, even losing 5 to 10 pounds for some people who have hypertension can help lower their blood pressure. So we do know that that can make a difference. And, unfortunately, if some of these things can lead to chronic diseases and also can lead to early death. And if we think about the American diet, we really have changed quite a bit since the beginning, I guess you could say. But in 2014, Americans ate more fruits and vegetables. They also ate more fish and shellfish, cheese, chicken, turkey, less red meat, eggs, milk, and yogurt than in 1970. Since 1970, though, we have also added more refined grain products, so like cereals and crackers and things like that. And we have added fats and sugars and more calories to our food, to our diet. So we're eating a lot of high calorie, low nutrient type of foods. And we do know because of that, that can increase our weight and body fat. And so as those two things go up, that can put us at higher risk for certain diseases. So just an example here, you can see like in 1947, the average person was drinking 39.9 gallons of milk per person, whereas in 2007, that was down to 20 gallons per person. we also, part of that too is we have milk alternatives now, but we also have a lot of other choices as well, including carbonated beverages and soft drinks and those types of things. Back in 1947, getting a Coke was like a special treat. And today, getting a Coke is the pick me up in the afternoon to give me some caffeine to keep going, right? Um, what is a calorie? So a calorie is a measure of food. 1 kilocalorie equals 1 calorie equals 1,000 calories. But how we see it is look at that 1 kilocalorie. So when you're looking at a food label, which we'll talk about next time, it's going to be abbreviated as kcals, and we're going to see that 1 kilocalorie. But a kilocalorie is the heat energy needed to raise the temperature of 1,000 grams of water 1 degree Celsius. And that's how we can come up with how many calories are in food. Now, all of our essential nutrients, and so these are macronutrients, the carbohydrates, protein, and fat, they all provide energy. Okay, so when we're figuring out how many calories are in something, carbohydrates provide 4 calories per 1 gram of carb. Proteins provide 4 calories for 1 gram of protein, and 1 gram of fat provides 9 calories. We include alcohol in here. Alcohol does provide 7 calories per gram. However, that should not be our main source of energy. It doesn't provide us with a lot of nutrients. We'll talk more about alcohol on another day. But this is just kind of, okay, how does that work then? So if you looked at a food label and you looked at a piece of whole wheat bread, and you looked to see how many grams of carbs, protein, and fat it had in that product, you could calculate how many calories it has without even looking at the rest of the label for it to tell you. So it has 13 grams of carbs. So 13 times 4, because for every 1 gram of carbohydrate, there's 4 calories, right? So 13 times 4, that gives us 52 calories from carbohydrates. It has 1 gram of fat. There are 9 calories in 1 gram of fat. So 9 calories from fat. There are 3 grams of protein in this slice of bread. So there are 4 calories in 1 gram of protein. So 30 times 4. Water does not provide any energy. It's 0. So even though there's 11 grams of water, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, for the calorie wise, it doesn't provide any calories. So we don't have to worry about that. And if we add all those up, we come up with a total of 73 calories for that slice of bread. Okay. Macronutrients are your carbs, proteins, fats. We've talked about those, right? Because they provide energy and we need them in large amounts. Micronutrients are needed in very small amounts and they don't provide energy, and that falls into the vitamins and minerals category. Water is an essential nutrient. We do need it, but it does not provide energy, so it's not considered a macronutrient. Okay, it doesn't provide calories. It's essential, but no calories, so we don't put it as a macronutrient. Macronutrients, we need them in large amounts and provide energy. All right, so we're going to go over a few more key nutrition concepts. I'm trying to keep this short as possible, but just a few things that we have to think about when we're thinking about food, and things that I want you guys to kind of wrap your mind around about nutrition as we get going with this. First of all, most foods are naturally occurring mixtures of nutrients, and so there's no one food that's going to be perfect. And we actually need to be eating a wide variety of foods to get in all the nutrients that we need. So if we look at this comparison here of a potato to a cup of fat-free milk, they both provide protein, carbohydrates, a little bit of fat, but they also have water, vitamins, and minerals in them, which is important. So a potato is going to have potassium, where the milk is going to have some riboflavin and vitamin A and vitamin D, which wouldn't be in the potato. So they're both have things that are important to your diet and to your health. So there's not one thing that's going to be better than another. Or there are better choices, I should say that, but there's not one perfect food out there. That's the point I'm trying to make. Okay, eat a variety of foods that can help ensure the nutritional adequacy of your diet. So again, there's no perfect food. They're not going to contain everything that you need. But if you're eating a variety of foods, especially a variety of fruits and vegetables, minimally processed grains, we can make sure that we're getting in all the things that we need. There are no good or bad foods. Oh my gosh, you guys, we're so into this culture of good and bad, and there's so many like diets out there with, there's the keto diet where carbs are the devil, or we're going to be doing clean eating where we're not going to eat any sugar ever. So, there are better choices when it comes to food, but we shouldn't put foods into a box of good or bad food. And so if we think about foods, so I used to use this with my kids all the time, that we would when we were choosing foods, we would have our sometimes foods and all the time foods. So sometimes foods are going to be foods that fall into this empty calories. Okay, they don't provide a lot of vitamins and minerals, but they do provide calories. So things that would fall into that category are going to be like potato chips and ice cream and fruit snacks, or maybe even Pop-Tarts or something like that. Okay, they provide calories, but they don't provide a whole lot of anything else. Where a nutrient-dense food has more micronutrients and minerals in relation to its energy value. So, like milk or an apple or peanut butter or something like that. And so this is just a good example here of nutrient density. Instead of choosing chicken nuggets, having a piece of chicken with a salad, because then we're getting lots of different vitamins and minerals in that. Instead of having French fries that are processed and they've lost the skin, let's eat a baked potato with the skin. Instead of the apple pie, which is delicious and would be okay to choose sometimes, but maybe not every single day of the week, we choose an apple instead because it's going to be lower calories, higher in fiber, and less sugar, okay, and fat as well. And so we have to think of it in that way. How can I make maybe a better choice? And so, I always put like fruits, vegetables, whole grains are in that all the time food list. And then our snack foods are in that sometimes list. So they're okay to eat sometimes, just not all the time. All right, enjoy eating foods in moderation. So, if you like ice cream, then eat ice cream. I like ice cream. I enjoy it a lot. We actually had it the other night, and it's okay to want to eat ice cream, but maybe we don't have to eat it every day. Okay. It's okay to eat pizza. There's nothing wrong with pizza. I love pizza. I could eat it every day, but I choose not to, and try to eat a salad and some other healthy things every once in a while. For each nutrient, there is a range of safe intakes. So we have established, and we'll talk more about this in chapter 2, dietary ranges that will help meet the nutrition needs of preventing deficiencies, diseases. So safe ranges for intakes of vitamins and minerals. And scientists have been able to establish those and give us guidelines in what we need to consume to remain in a healthy state. And then food is the best source of nutrients and phytochemicals. So a lot of our processed foods, or even our some of our beverages and things like that claim to be these superfoods or super drinks, they're not always going to be the best source. Some of them have things added in, certainly, but if we're eating fresh foods, if we're eating fresh or frozen fruits and vegetables and, lean chicken and lean ground beef and all those types of things, that's going to be better for us in the long run, because especially with our vegetables and fruits, eating those is what's going to help. A wide variety of those can get us the phytochemicals that we need that can be healthy. We also have to remember that there's not one perfect way to eat. And so, how I eat is based on a lot of things. It's based on how many calories I need a day, which is going to be different for everyone based upon their activity level, the size of their body, how much they weigh, what are maybe if they have some fitness and health goals, what they are working towards. And we also have to realize that some of these diet plans are very strict about when you eat and how you eat and how often and all those kinds of things. You can really still be healthy and make choices around the timing of your food and what kind of food and when you're choosing it and all those types of things. There's no one perfect way to eat. Really, the one perfect way to eat healthy is the perfect way that it works for you. There's my spiel on that for now. Okay, so other things, other concepts that we have, foods and the nutrients they contain are not cure-alls. And so I see this a lot on social media about people eating a certain way to help cure cancer. Please don't use just food to treat medical problems. It's not medicine, and it shouldn't be treated in that way. They are not, there is no, perfect drink out there. There's no perfect supplement out there that's going to fix everything. Food isn't going to do that alone. Concept 9, malnutrition includes an undernutrition as well as overnutrition. And so some people are like, well, how can you have overnutrition and be malnourished? And so what that means is we do see in patients, when I working as a dietitian in the hospital, we had a gentleman who was large. I mean, he was like 700 pounds and he was in the ICU. And he was on a ventilator. He had pneumonia. We were working with him. We were working to try to get his tube feeding regulated. And when we ran labs on him, we actually found he was malnourished. He wasn't malnourished in the sense of you think, someone who's really thin, frail, and you can see their bones sticking out. But he did have nutrient deficiencies because he was just consuming lots of high energy, low nutrient density foods all day and drinking like a ton of soda. So he was missing out on a lot of vitamins and minerals and things like that, which make up your nutritional status. And so he was actually malnourished. And then we do know that undernutrition, we see that as well. And that's when people don't get enough to eat and they don't consume enough, maybe protein or vitamins or minerals. We can see malnutrition in those folks as well. And so it's not always, we think about malnutrition occurs in maybe places where food access is limited, but we can see it in the elderly population as well. If they have trouble fixing their own meals, or even in our own backyard, if we do have some food insecurity, some kids may be skipping meals because they don't have enough to eat. And so malnutrition can cover a wide variety of things. So finally, nutrition is a dynamic science. It is changing all the time, which makes it hard and also very confusing. And so one day you're going to hear, red wine helps prevent cancer. The next day it may not. And you're like, I don't know what to believe, but it is changing. And part of it is why it's hard to study nutrition is that we don't eat just one thing, right? We don't eat just broccoli and then tell all the wonderful things that broccoli is going to do for us. So that's where it can be kind of difficult to study nutrition, but we're coming up with better ways and better science to help us establish some, what is best for us and what is healthiest for us. And y'all, I've seen the changes. I've been a dietitian for 20 years, and we used to be like no fat, low fat. You stay away from all the fats. All the fats are bad. And now we're swinging back kind of the other direction because we replace fats for carbohydrates. And so now people say carbohydrates are bad. Really, they're both fine, and they both can work in a healthy diet if we put them together the right way. And so we can make both things work, and that's just part of nutrition and how it's evolving in the scientific realm. Okay, guys, so that was a quick overview of chapter 1. You're going to have a quiz that you're going to need to take, so go through that chapter 1 outline notes, take your quiz, and then if you're online, it was good to see you guys here, and if you're in the face-to-face class, I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.